Hey guys, this is Jocelyn from Fantasia Elegance with another wire wrap jewelry tutorial for you. I've been getting requests for projects that incorporate wire weaving techniques, so today I'll be showing you how to make this adjustable swirl ring, which uses a very basic wire weave that anyone can master. The amounts of wire you'll be needing for this ring will obviously vary based on what size you're making, but in order for you to have a point of reference, I'll let you know how much I used for a size 9 ring. So to get started on this ring, we're going to first form these swirls on either end of our two pieces of wire. So I'm going to take one of these pieces and my round nose pliers, and I'm going to start by making a tight curl right here. I'm going to bring the wire all the way around on itself, and then I'm going to continue curling that until we have about that much curl. And mine got a little out of shape here. It's hard for me to gauge distances looking through the camera lens here, so I apologize for that. And we're going to go to the other end of this and swirl it towards the same side, except this one we're going to make a little bit smaller. You want one end to be a larger swirl than the other end. So that one I'm just going to curve a little bit. And I might actually make this one even larger here. There we go. And we're going to do the exact same thing with our other piece. Making one smaller. And then one larger at the other end. And again, they're both going to go on the same side of the wire, curving in the same direction. There we go. And how we're going to line these up is to have one of the smaller ends by the larger end, and we're going to stagger these so that the larger swirl is sticking out a little bit farther, just like that. So what we have to do to start attaching these, I'm going to take my long piece of 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to start with my larger swirl here and my 26 gauge wire. I'm just going to go to the very end here, and with about 1 to 2 inches tail, I'm going to pinch this with my thumb right here, right below the swirl, and I'm going to wrap this tightly in a coil, just to give us something to anchor this wire onto our piece here. So I'm making very tight coils like this, and I'm going to keep doing that until I have this all wrapped around it. So I've finished wrapping that one end of my 26 gauge wire around our 20 gauge piece here, and now I'm going to take our second piece, and selecting the smaller swirl that we made, I'm going to line this up so that it's slightly offset, just like this, and I'm going to hold them about 1/8 of an inch apart, just like that. Now what we're going to do to start the weave, you can see here my 26 gauge wire is coming off the top side. So what I want to do is take this under our second piece. So I'm going to go under and then bring it back around. And the hardest part here is getting the weave started. So don't be discouraged if it's a little fiddly at first. So I'm going to pinch this with my thumb so that I'm securing both of these pieces together. And I'm going to bring this up over And you can use this opening here. So I'm going over this piece and under this piece. Just like that. And I'm going to tighten this up. I want my pieces to be a little closer together than that. So I'm going to pull in my chain nose pliers here and just tighten this up a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to do a few wraps around this piece, just like we did for this upper one. So again, I'm just using that space to wrap this around. And you want the coils to lie snugly next to each other. And again, I'm just making sure that they are nice and tight by tightening them up with my chain nose pliers as I go. So I'm going to do about 3 wraps, and then I'm going to bring it back to this upper piece here. So you can see, if you can see, our first connector came from the top side of this one and then went underneath. And our second one is going to come from the top of this one, top of the lower swirl piece, and go under the upper swirl piece. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm bringing this over the first one and under the second one. And I'm just going to pull that nice and tight. And again, snugging it all up together. So we're just doing an over-under type of braid here. So now that I'm under the upper swirl piece, I'm going to do a few more wraps around it. So once you've done 3 wraps again up here, we're going to once again bring it over the top piece and under this one. And I'm going to make sure it's tight and laying next to the previous coil. And eventually we're going to want all of these to be right up next to each other, but don't worry about that right now. Since it's so tricky to get this started, all secured together, we can fine-tune that later. There we go. And again, you can see we're going to be bringing this around and wrapping a few more times. So I've done 3 more wraps on the lower swirl piece, and my tail is coming off, going under the upper swirl piece. So a good way to think of this is we're making rungs of a ladder. You can see there. And each rung is going to alternate whether it's going this way or this way, between the two posts of the ladder, if you will. So it's almost a sort of zigzagging motion. So now you can see it's time to wrap it around our upper swirl piece. So you can see the pattern we're doing is 3 wraps around the post of the ladder before doing each rung. To continue our analogy. So once again, I'm going to, as you can see, I finished my 3 wraps on this piece, and I'm going to bridge over to the lower piece. And I'm going to wrap the other direction now, just like so, and make 3 more wraps around this lower piece. So you should be starting to get the hang of the pattern now. And just to point out, if you could see what I was doing, whenever the coils start separating here, I like to just take my chain nose pliers on either side of that and bring it all back together so it's nice and snug. And if your 2 pieces start to drift like that, you can simply pull it back into alignment. And if you see any coils that are sticking out, you can again just use your chain nose pliers to tweak that up. So I'm just going to do a few more iterations of our pattern to make sure you get this. So let's see. So now that I've done 3 spirals there, I'm going to make another rung by bridging over to the other side and wrapping around that other post of the ladder in the opposite direction again. So at this point, I think I'm going to leave you to finish continuing this pattern until we get to about this point at the other end. And before I forget, a word about this particular pattern. You can change the look of it very simply just by adding fewer or more wraps in between each rung. If you have fewer wraps, you'll have a denser looking weave, and if you have more wraps in between each crisscross, you'll have a looser looking weave. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this pattern all the way down and finish up at the end here, and I'll come back and show you the next step after that. So I am back. I've finished this weave to the end of our swirl pieces here, and just to show you what I did at the end, I continued that weave up until approximately the base of the swirls, and then, just like our other side where we kind of anchored it on the larger swirl, I continued by doing several wraps around the larger swirl with the end of the wire, the thinner wire, and then I trimmed it off with my flush cutters and used my chain nose pliers just to snug down the end, just like that. So there we go. And now it's very simply a matter of wrapping this around a ring mandrel, or if you don't have one, anything that approximates the size of the finger that you want to wear the ring on. It is adjustable, but works best if you size it for the ideal size that you want it to be. So let me grab my ring mandrel here. Now I am doing a size 9, so very simply I'm just going to shape this around the mandrel right at the size 9, and when your two ends come together you want the larger swirls to be towards the outsides, as it were, and you want to nest each smaller swirl inside the V that's made between the swirls on each end. You may need to slide it off the mandrel to finish it up here. So you want it to lie with slightly staggered like this, so the smaller swirls are inside the little notch right like that, and you can see it's going to be going slightly sideways, and then it's just a matter of getting the swirls so they're level viewed from the side. That just makes it more comfortable when you're wearing it. There we go. And then all you have to do is slip it on. So there you go. This is one simple ring made with a wire weave. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please do leave them below. I'd be happy to help you out if you're running into difficulties with this ring. And as always, I'm happy to get any ideas for future tutorials that you might like to see. As always, thank you for watching, and happy crafting!